Hi, I'm going to answer commonly asked bus questions today. What? You may be thinking, you got a bunch of screw holes to fill and you better get to doing that instead. And to that I say, no, I'll do it tomorrow. I don't feel like it today. It's not that I'm feeling bad or anything, I just don't want to do that. So I'm going to answer commonly asked bus questions. So let's go to the bus dungeon. I've had a few people ask me for this sloping roof section that I'm going to make, can I reuse the curved sheet metal piece that I took out of it by just flipping it backwards? Well, no, because the slope isn't the same. Even if I flip it around backwards, the slope is not the same. I rose this side up more than it was down in the first place, so I can't reuse that sheet metal panel. Besides, I didn't remove that sheet metal in a way that made it easy to be reused, so no. Also, on a related note, I've had a few people ask me if I'm going to put windows in here. While that is a good idea, no, I'm not going to put windows in this custom sloping roof section because that's a little bit too difficult. I don't have faith in my abilities to make this custom roof section and install windows in it. I think it might be just on the cusp of my abilities making this sloping roof section to begin with. I don't need to throw windows on top of that. Another question I've received a lot of over the past several months is, what's the legal status of this bus, and do you need a special license to drive it on American roads? Well, no, I don't need a special license to drive it. The two sources that I have telling me that I don't need a CDL or commercial driver's license to drive a bus like this is one, the Missouri Highway Patrol station that I called and asked them that. The guy on the phone said, no, it's a privately owned bus, you don't need a CDL. And the other place that told me this was the bus dealership that I bought this bus from. I have received a lot of conflicting information, mostly from people on the internet telling me that this advice is wrong and I do need a CDL to drive this, even though it is a privately owned bus. But those are just people on the internet. It's not a reliable source, and I have received no solid information telling me that I need a CDL to drive this bus. The guy at the Highway Patrol inspection station told me I don't, so I'm going with that information. Also, right now it's licensed as a private bus. It has no insurance because I'm actively working on it, and I'm not going to be driving it anywhere, but insurance is kind of hard to find. But none of this matters because in the future, when this bus nears completion, I can take it to a Missouri Highway Patrol inspection station, have it inspected, and they'll go through a checklist of RV things like, do you have a place to poop? Do you have a place to eat? Do you have a place to make food? Do you have a place to sleep? And then the title can be changed over to an RV officially. They'll assign it a new title, they'll assign it a new VIN, they'll remove the old VIN, and it will officially be a recreational vehicle. And as a recreational vehicle, the insurance is cheaper. It officially becomes an RV to other states, so if I wanted to, I could sell it anywhere as an RV, and most importantly, any Joe Schmo with a regular driving license can drive it. 100% sure that is how that is. So as of right now, I'm 90% sure that I don't need a special driver's license, but in the future, I'm 100% sure I don't need a special driver's license, because anyone can pilot an RV as long as they have a driver's license, and that's the only requirement. It can be a Class 8 semi. As long as it's an RV, you can drive it on a regular license. Now, to some people that's terrifying, but I think that's absolutely great. And RV insurance is cheap for a reason. They have a very low incident rate. So anyway, that's the legal status of the bus. As far as all the modifications and stuff I'm doing to it, no one in the government capacity cares. No one cares. The safety inspections are incredibly minimal here, and none of the modifications matter. This isn't England. There's no MOT. This isn't Germany. I don't have to have it engineered or anything. It's just, it goes. Another question relating to legal situations is, what are you going to do about seat restraints? Where's the child going to sit while the bus is moving? And this is a very good question. Obviously, the driver's seat's going to be there, and the seat belt is not hard to imagine where that's going to be. I also plan to have another captain's chair here for the passenger. It might have to have a flip-down seat or maybe a flip-down floor or something to put your feet on, but that's pretty well sorted. As for the rest of the restrained seating in the bus, I plan to copy what motorhome manufacturers in the United States already do. Just put seat belts in the dinette or sofa or whatever I have up front here. It's not the safest situation because it is just a lap belt, but it will prevent you from flying around the living quarters in the event of an accident, so that's something. Also, the child has a car seat anyway, so I can just strap him in to the car seat, and the car seat can be strapped into the couch with the lap belt, and that should be plenty safe. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy what existing motorhome manufacturers already do and put lap belts in all the furniture. What color will the bus be? I'm actually surprised how many of you asked this question. Well, the simple answer is I don't know. Maybe a gunmetal gray or something. That's just the idea that floats around my head because I have no creativity. For sure the roof is going to be white because I'm probably going to use a rubberized roof coating on that just because it's a roof and it needs to be reflective for the sun and everything. It's probably going to be solar panels on top of that. I'm thinking about having a large, thick black stripe around the perimeter of the bus where the windows are to make it look like one solid strand of windows. I don't know. When it's done, when the sides are on and everything, I'll have to do a little mock-up in Photoshop or something to see how that looks, but that's a thought. As for the rest of it, it's going to be probably a solid color. Again, maybe gray, maybe I don't know. I have no idea what color it's going to be. It's definitely not going to be yellow, and it's probably going to have very little black on it. But other than that, I really don't know. Do you want to engine swap the bus? Well, I want to, because this thing is underpowered. I think it only makes like 210 horsepower, if I remember correctly. It's a 7.2-liter Caterpillar engine, if I remember correctly, again. But anyway, it's underpowered, but I'm probably not going to do anything to it for a long time, because if I even start thinking about modifying or replacing this engine, that gets expensive real fast. Because how do you even get this thing out of here? I don't have a lift or some sort of rolly hydraulic lifty table like Bad Obsession Motorsports guys made to get this engine out of here. So I'm going to leave it put for now because it work. It's slow, but it work. If you could be any type of bus, what type of bus would you be? Crown Supercoach. How much do you think the bus will weigh when you're done? I don't know. When I bought the bus, I took it over a weigh scale, and it was 18,000 pounds, which is pretty heavy. And I've taken a lot of weight out of it since then. I've taken all the seats out. The whole back of the bus is gone, and all the sheet metal that was inside and on the outside even. So I'm going to be putting weight back into it, obviously, when I make the car deck and the living quarters filled up. So let's say it's going to weigh 19,000 pounds when I'm done. I'll add weight to it from when I started. If that's the case, well, this thing has a GVWR of 30,000 pounds, so that still gives me 11,000 pounds of capacity to play with, which is plenty. So I'm not really concerned about how much it's going to weigh when I'm done with it, because it'll have more than enough capacity anyway. Are you concerned about having too much weight behind the rear axle of the bus? Okay, I get it. I get the concern for this. This thing looks incredibly unbalanced. There's like 10 feet sticking out here behind the rear axle. But here's the thing. It's not a concern at all. If you're worried about tail strength, well, the ladder frame chassis of the bus is like a foot thick of steel, and it goes all the way to the rear bumper unbroken. It's one solid beam. So there's no concern there. And I've also seen people concerned that if you put a car back here, it's going to raise the front end of the bus, make it steering unstable, or make it all tippy or whatever. But here's the thing, that's not a concern whatsoever. The reality is I'm more concerned about overloading the front axle. I'm more concerned about having too much weight on the front axle, because there's almost nothing back here now. I don't want to drive, when it's done, I don't want to drive this bus around without a car on the back because the front axle might be overloaded. I need a car back here to balance out the weight a little bit more because it's real front heavy right now. So, yeah, no, I'm not concerned about having too much weight behind the rear axle. It's not a concern at all. The exact opposite is true. Also, you have to remember that the giant heavy diesel engine is all the way in the front of the bus too. That weighs it down quite a bit as well. No, I'm not worried about that. Have you thought about using slide-out ramps for loading cars up onto the deck? Yes, of course I've thought about using slide-out ramps. It's like the simplest solution imaginable. The problem is, have you realized how high this deck is? I'm going to have some extremely long ramps to load cars up into this deck. And because they're so long, I'll have to have probably 2, maybe even 3 supports in the middle of these ramps to load the cars up so the ramps don't just collapse under the weight of any car I put on top of them. So yes, I've thought about ramps. Of course I have. I'm just trying to think of a better solution, something that's simpler, more elegant. Yeah, I just haven't found that solution yet. So maybe I won't think of anything better. Maybe I will go with ramps. But yes, I've thought about it. Stop emailing me. How are you going to handle the septic? Will you be using a composting toilet? That's a good question. I don't think I'm going to use a composting toilet. I think it's just a little too much. I think I'm just going to go the simple route and either have a black tank or maybe just a cassette toilet, one of those that comes out in a little cartridge, looks like a cooler, but it's full of poop. I think I'm just going to do that. I like overcomplicating things, but I don't want to overcomplicate the toilet. I just want a bucket that I can poop in and not really think about it until the tank comes full. So I'm probably just going to do that. Also a standard gray water tank as well. When will the bus be done? Well, obviously I don't know the answer to that question, but I expect it to take probably at least 2 more years. And I don't mean for it to be done. It'll never be done. It's a big project. But for it to be in a working state, probably 2 to 3 more years. But that's just a guess. I have no idea. I'm not from the future. Who knows if it'll ever even be done? Who knows if I can form sentences ever in some point in the future? At some point in the future. What are you going to do with the bus when it's done? Haul cars and use it as an RV. I feel like when people ask that question, they're generally expecting me to say some sort of grandiose plan of what I want to do with it when I'm done. Like, I want to live off the grid, or I want to go coast to coast hauling cars for people, or I want to start building my collection or something. But the reality of it is, the thing that drove me to start this project and the thing that continues to drive me in this project has nothing to do with the end result, although that is a nice goal. The thing that really drives me is the designing and building. That's my favorite part. I wanted to take on this project because I like designing and building big projects like this. This is what is fun for me. The end result, not really on my radar at this moment. It gives me a nice thing a nice goal to reach. It gives me something to design towards, and I'm going to use it when I'm done for sure, but the fun for me is in the building. So I haven't really thought about what I'm going to do with it when I'm done. Last question, what are your plans for electrics in the bus? Well, I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible because I could go on for quite some time about this. Like I said, at some point, I think it was the first video where I talked about plans for this bus, I want no propane in this bus whatsoever, and I want it to be as independent as possible off the grid, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to definitely have solar panels on top, and since I'm not going to have propane, I'm going to have an induction cooktop, an electric water heater, probably one of those 6-gallon under the sink water heaters that's typically used to make your hot water come on faster in the house, and a mini split for the heating and cooling, so I won't need any propane for that. I plan to have a very large battery bank on board, whether they be Nissan Leaf batteries or whatever. They're going to be lithium batteries, lithium ion or lithium iron. If I get the battery cells out of the WeGo, they'll be lithium iron. I plan to have a rather large charger inverter charger. So it'll just be an inverter and a charger in one unit. It'll probably be an output of 4,000 watts, 3,000 watts, enough to power the inverter induction cooktop and the mini split, probably even a microwave, all at the same time. Like I said, solar panels on board for charging the batteries. It will have a shore hookup in case I need that, or for just sitting it in the house here for charging the batteries. I'd like to have another alternator on the bus engine for charging the batteries when you're on the road. And if it's a 48-volt setup, then I'll have a bunch of 48 to 12-volt converters that are typically used for golf carts. I can have those around the bus for the 12-volt system on the bus. And the battery pack that's used for the living quarter stuff will be separate from the bus electrics. So the 3 batteries on board that are used for starting this gigantic diesel engine will not be tied into the RV electrics whatsoever. They will be separate systems. I don't think I'm forgetting anything big picture-wise, but that's the idea. I also want to do some fancy automated stuff for fun, like have a button that closes all the blinds and just little gimmicky things like that, just because I want to fiddle around with that sort of thing. But that's way in the future, and I'm not thinking about that right now. Although I have been thinking about the electrics as a whole, and what companies I'm going to go with, and what companies I'm going to try to reach out to for sponsorships, because all that's going to get real expensive real fast. But yeah, that's the general idea. Now, I know I didn't answer all of your questions, but those are some of the more commonly asked questions, so hopefully that will satisfy a lot of you. I'm sure I'm still going to get more questions below this video. But anyway, I want to talk briefly about de-school busification. I did mention this briefly when I talked about removing the black bars off the side of the bus. I said I was doing it for just that little bit of customization, just that little bit of de-school busification. I want to take that a little bit further. I wanted to, this is in the future, I'm not talking about the near future or anything, but in the future I'd like to change up this front fascia just a little bit. Do little subtle changes like swap out these blinkers for something a little less, I don't know, child-friendly, something with no giant arrow on it. Maybe swap out these headlights for something better in a different shape, which would involve modifying the metal panel that it's in, just for a little bit of fun customization work. And the warning lights up there, I've already blacked them out. I'm going to be removing those and patching all the holes and everything so it just looks like a flat panel, again, at some point in the future, which is why I wanted to practice with the MIG welder delicacy, because that's delicacy? No, delicate use of the MIG welder, whatever, because I wanted to patch the holes that those lights come through, and just do various little tiny things around the bus. If I get an inkling for it, I might do stuff like replace these mirrors for non-school bus spec mirrors. Maybe I'll replace them with RV mirrors or something. Just do various little things around the bus that make it less school bus-like and more RV-like. It is pointless changes. Changes for the sake of changes, but it's something that I kind of want to do, just for fun. So that's a little bit more of the de-school busification that I was talking about. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's all I have for today. I'll see you tomorrow. I guess I'll do, I don't know, work or something in tomorrow's video. We'll see.